Good evening. Glad that you are watching us on TV47 on the news tonight. Kakamega road carnage. 7 people killed in a greasy road accident in Kakamega. 14 others are nursing serious injuries from the accident that involved a matatu and a lorry transporting sand. More developing news here tonight. Also tonight, ODM conscience is clean. Raila Odinga defends his party against an avalanche of accusation that they are shielding suspects of the KEMSA scandal. Raila says his party is a believer in procedural execution of the war against corruption. This even as lobbyists in Nakuru engage police in running battles as they protest the COVID-19 funds plunder. Plus, complicated revenue formula, and the revenue sharing formula problem is far from being solved. The Senate bipartisan committee failed to secure a deal with Treasury and the CRA officials. Tonight we tell you why the divide over the formula is getting wider. And learning in the farm. A farmer in Uasin Gishu County has started teaching pupils and students different farm skills in keeping with the government's push for learning outside classrooms. The students openly admit the skills that they have learnt are new to them. One of the few silver linings of the pandemic. Tonight of all nights, Ann Wairimu is our sign language interpreter. TV47 News Tonight with me, Abu Bakar Abdullahi, begins right now. Good evening and welcome to the broadcast. To our top stories, 7 people have been killed and 14 others sustained serious injuries after a road crash involving a lorry carrying gravel and a matatu along Eldoret-Webuye Highway in Kakamega County. Our reporter Mike Kagwongo begins our broadcast tonight.
Eyewitnesses say the lorry was transporting gravel before ramming into a matatu and women who were selling their wares by the roadside near Kaburengo Trading Center.
Gari ikatoka huko juu imekatika brakes. Yes. Hiyo gari ikagonga kwanza Nissan huko hivyo. Ikagonga Nissan ikaingia kwanza huko ndani. Ikakuja ikaua watu ikakuja ikafanya nini? Ikamalizia kwa Nissan nyingine hapa hivi.
Gari limetoka juu likiwa limebeba kokoto. Likakosa break, likagonga wamama ambao wanauza soko na gari 2 za Nissan. Na hawa mama wanapogongwa ni kwa sababu walikuwa wamekuja kutafuta kitoweo cha watoto. Na maajabu ni kwamba barabara hii imepita kwa shamba la wamama wa soko.
Hapa mahali wamama wanakufa. Pesa ilikuwa mali hapa ya kutengenezea wamama soko, lakini ameweka wamama kwa barabara. Wamama wanakufa, hawajajua wamama mali penye wanakaa. Sisi tumechoka wamama kufa kila siku hapa, hatengenezea wamama soko na wamama wakae ndani.
6 people died on the spot while another succumbed to injuries on the way to hospital.
Na ni bahati mbaya kwamba imeweza kuwaumiza wananchi 7 ambao kwa bahati mbaya wamepoteza maisha na watu kadhaa ambao wameumizwa, karibu watu 14 ambao wamekimbizwa Webuye hospital wakiwa na majeraha.
Kakamega Deputy Police Commander James Ngetich, while confirming the incident, called on the drivers to be cautious while approaching the center, which has become a hotspot.
Lori ilipoteza mwelekeo ikiwa inateremka katika hiyo mteremko ya Chimoi, na ndiposa ikagonga wale watu walikuwa kando ya barabara. Wengi wao ni wamama ambao ni wachuuzi, walikuwa wanauza bidhaa kando ya barabara. Hii biashara ya kando ya barabara saa zingine iko na madhara, na ingekuwa mzuri kama wangeweza kuuzia bidhaa zao kwenye soko ili kupunguza ajali katika barabara kuu ambayo hii barabara ni barabara ambayo iko na magari mingi sana.
Chivaiwa Location Chief Alex Koricho has urged traders to desist from conducting their activities on the roadside and also called on Kakamega and national governments to relocate them so as to avoid similar casualties in the future.
National government na county government tushirikiane, because Kaprem ilikuwa na sehemu yao ya kuhusia matunda na mboka, na hiyo sehemu ilichukuliwa na Kenya hakuchenga hii parapara na wanelea. Ingelikuwa vizuri serikali kama nisa kutenga pesa tunue sehemu yenye mama atakuwa anahusia vitu yao na pota na manamba kusimama. Hiyo inasuka kuchambo mzuri.
The injured are undergoing treatment at Webuye Referral Hospital as bodies of dead were taken to Webuye Hospital mortuary. Reporting for TV47 from Webuye, Bungoma County, I'm Mike Kagwako.
While still on the road, 2 people died on the spot while 16 others, including an unnamed nephew of Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho, sustained serious injuries in 2 separate accidents that occurred at Shaurimoyo area along Kilifi-Mombasa Highway today afternoon. The first accident involved a Toyota Land Cruiser V8 vehicle that had Joho's relatives, which collided head-on with a canter. Witnesses said Joho's nephew, who was responding to his sister after learning of the first accident, also collided head-on with a matatu not far from the scene. Ambulances from the Kilifi County Government and Mombasa Cement Company responded quickly and rushed those injured to Kilifi Hospital. Kilifi Health CEC Charles Dadu confirmed that the 2 of the victims had succumbed, including a mother who was traveling in the matatu to Mtwapa.
Kati ya vile tuwasikitika kusema 2 wamepoteza maisha yao, ikiwa mmoja ni mwanamume, mmoja ni mwanamke. Na huyu mwanamke alikuwa na mtoto wa chini ya miaka 10 ambaye yeye yuko hai na yuko katika hali bora, lakini bado tunaendelea kutafuta binamu wao. Kati ya wale wagonjwa 3 mahututi, mmoja amesafirishwa kwa njia ya ndege kupelekwa upande wa Mombasa. Kwa hivyo yule msimamizi mkubwa wa hospitali aliandamana na wale na pia wauguzi kumsafirisha yule mgonjwa kwenda Mombasa.
May their soul rest in eternal peace. Elsewhere, the 12-member Senate committee tasked to resolve the revenue share stalemate is yet to agree on the best formula to share revenue 1 week after its formation. Senators from the counties that will gain from the third generation revenue are now firmly behind the third basis of revenue share, thus the standoff. Our parliamentary affairs reporter Elizabeth Mutuku has the details.
The stalemate in the Senate continues, with the 12-member bipartisan committee failing to agree on a way forward. According to a source privy to the happenings in the committee, so far the Treasury has gone mute on a request by the committee for an extra 9 billion shillings from the exchequer to cushion the losing counties. According to sources, Monday's meeting was adjourned for a moment, with senators from the counties that were gaining in the third basis for sharing revenue refused to budge, insisting on getting what they believe rightfully belongs to them. President Uhuru Kenyatta's remarks on revenue share is said to have fueled the disagreements between senators over the formula.
Hii formula si ilitolewa na wale watu wa SRC, si imeenda Senate kusema watu wagawe pesa kwa njia ya haki, kila mtu apate haki. Kwa nini mwananchi wa Nairobi ati kwa sababu inasemekana ati Nairobi ni mji tajiri, wewe ambao unaishi Embakasi na Korogosho bado unafunga choo kwa karatasi, lakini unaambiwa wewe ni tajiri, huna haki ya kupata pesa? Ukweli na haki utajitokeza.
Senate Majority Whip Irungu Kangata is now proposing that the committee invites the leadership of the House to try and hammer out an acceptable solution. Kangata says what is important is to get a solution rather than the speed of the process.
Vote no.
The Senate was expected to have a special sitting on Tuesday, but Speaker Kenneth Lusaka says that won't be happening until committee hands over a complete report. The Senate has met and failed to agree on the best formula for 9 times as counties continue to suffer for lack of funds. Elizabeth Mutuko, TV47 Nairobi.
Elsewhere, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has ruled out the possibility of reopening TVET institutions in the near future if the COVID-19 infections rate keeps rising.
CS Magoha spoke while on a tour to Kitale National Polytechnic. Boniface Baraza has the details.
After strong criticism from a section of leaders on ODM's stand on COVID-19, ODM party leader Raila Odinga seems to have changed the tune. In a statement to newsrooms, Raila Odinga urged the government to speed up investigations that will lead to prosecution of culprits instead of a political match shouting that creates more confusion. Raila further says ODM will not defend anyone, including members, relatives or friends found to have benefited from COVID-19 funds. Meanwhile, human rights activists in Nakuru engaged police in running battles as they held protests against alleged corruption, including the theft of supplies meant for the fight against COVID-19. The activists calling for proper investigations into the fraudulent deals at KEMSA.
As angry Kenyans, to actually demand the government to actually do a proper investigation and arrest those who are culpable. So we are here today as human rights defenders in Nakuru to actually tell the government that we are tired. Enough is enough. For how long will we run? For how long will we be afraid?
In a similar tone, the Justice for Every Child Campaign Kenya organization has strongly condemned the embezzlement of funds meant to help in the fight against COVID-19. The youth organization has called upon the government to expedite investigations and ensure all suspects are brought to book.
It is very sad indeed to know that there are people who are becoming rich amidst a pandemic that is making young people poor, that is making young people resort to crime, that is making young girls give up their virginity for pads, that is making mothers send out their daughters to become sexual workers. It is indeed sad that we can sit and watch as the government does things like this.
Eli Logova, TV47.
All right, we apologize for that mix-up. That story was about ODM leader Raila Odinga, who called for an audit to the COVID-19 funds. The story on education will be coming your way shortly. Elsewhere, Health CAS Dr. Rashid Aman has today stated that the Ministry of Health's objective is to ensure that its response to matters COVID-19 does not falter. This will only happen, he says, if healthcare workers do not continue to down their tools. This coming when the country has an additional 193 COVID-19 cases, bringing the total national tally to 32,557.
Health CAS Dr. Rashid Aman on Monday appealed to frontline workers through the Kenya Medical Association to call off their strike that kicked off 4 days ago in order for Kenyans to continue receiving health services during these dire times of COVID-19, adding that the strike will falter these services.
Ours is to appeal to our healthcare workers to be able to continue to render these important services at this critical time, but at the same time enter into dialogue on the grievances that they may have.
This comes even after the Nairobi Metropolitan Service NMS had 7 days to resolve grievances addressed by the health workers, among them being lack of medical covers and quarantine facilities for doctors and health workers in Nairobi County.
It's just basic them to give us a comprehensive medical cover, to promote the specialists who are working to pay the locum doctors, to ease the shortage of doctors and employ more doctors, give us an isolation space, and more importantly, give us an isolation space and redesignate and promote the specialists.
Secretary General of the Kenya Medical Practitioners Union, KMPDU, Ranira Kaugiria, alluded that if Monday's meeting held at City Hall led by NMS does not yield a solution to their grievances, the strike will be escalated effective Tuesday.
It's unfortunate that if that is not sorted out today, we shall be escalating the strike from tomorrow. We might possibly hit the streets. Hii ni mpaka mwisho. It's day 4 of many.
The COVID-19 national tally now stands at 32,557 cases, following an additional 193 positive cases. 225 recoveries have been discharged, as 6 more have succumbed to the virus.
Today, 193 people have tested positive, following the testing of 3,381 samples over the last 24 hours. This now brings the number of cumulative positives in the country to 32,557.
Nanok Lauren, TV47.
Elsewhere, Kericho Governor Paul Chepkwony was put to task to explain the expenditure of 1.8 million shillings in a water project which never benefited the county, despite the relevant company being paid the full amount. Appearing before the Senate's Public Accounts Committee, the governor was at pains to explain how tendering and procurement has been undertaken on several projects, with senators suspicious of single sourcing.
Do you do your pre-qualification the way you did it for this coffee roaster, or you have a list of pre-qualified suppliers? Because this looks like a unique way of doing pre-qualification of supply, where you tell people bring your prices, and then I say, okay, blah blah blah, these 3 companies or 4 companies are able to supply, then now you give the tender adverts. That there is a pre-arranged exercise where you have 3 or 4 companies just to satisfy the requirements of Public Procurement Act of 2015, but then 2 of them are knocked at the technicalities. You know, Governor, for there to be value for money, it is important that all procurement matters are settled at finance level. If you realize that procurement matters are being settled at preliminary stage, it tells you there is a problem with the procurement department, because you find a situation where only one firm always ends up at the tail end of most of these questionable procurement. So can you assure this committee that 1, this is not by design, that 2, your procurement department maintains an updated list of pre-qualified suppliers who meet all the minimum requirements? Because, and you know why this is important, Chair, is because if you have pre-qualified suppliers who don't meet minimum requirements, then you end up with this situation where for everything that you procure, only one bidder is selected. So that's not a pre-qualification exercise. That's almost single sourcing actually.
What is the level of duty of care for a geologist? I say that because I know of several instances where I've seen them saying there will be water, and then it happens there will be no water. And so at what point do you say, okay, he has done his bit, he has done his best, therefore he is not culpable? Or is it so perfect that once he says there is water, and then there is no water, he takes maybe some professional burden?
Very accurate to the dot. But the earlier machines acted on the basis of probability that water can possibly be here. At times they strike it, at times they miss it by a small margin or a big margin. So for all the boreholes that we've drilled upon using our new parameter, which is actually 8 million Kenyan shillings plus, and I think the country has got only 2 of such, Kericho and National Water now. It is very accurate. We've never lost money since then. Every borehole we prospect, we strike water.
Moving on, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has ruled out the possibility of reopening TVET institutions in the near future if the COVID-19 infections rate keeps rising. CS Magoha spoke while on a tour of the Kitale National Polytechnic. Boniface Barasa has the details.
Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha says the government may be forced to allow only TVET students who are set to sit examination to report back to the college in the event that COVID-19 curve keep rising.
If there is measurable improvement and the behavior of the virus is reasonably stable, we may bite the bullet and allow the classes which are doing exams, for example, to come. But for TTCs, it is even more important because we intended to train the trainers, to allow the examination class to finish and go, and then train the trainers so that come May next year, we admit teachers who will be trained only on the CBC curriculum.
The Ministry of Education was contemplating reopening the institutions on 1st September, but the plan has been shelved despite calls from international bodies like UNICEF and WHO to have schools reopen to contain an upsurge of social vices meted in children.
The same WHO is double speaking because they have given us protocols which apply to everybody else. But they think because we are Africans, it is okay. We can ignore. Is somebody trying now to use us as guinea pigs or what? I think as far as we are concerned as government, we love our children. And it is in their interest that we are going to sit down again and to reevaluate every stage as we do every week, and then go to the stakeholders and come back to you.
Magoha challenged parents to take up the responsibility of instilling morals in their children in order to contain cases of teenage pregnancies that are on the rise since the closure of schools.
An issue of pregnancy, I think it's an issue which requires parents to start taking care. Why do you think it is going to school that will stop the pregnancy? Because the teachers are in control in school, isn't it? It is true. What about at home? Has times changed? If your daughter dresses and goes out, you don't care. And in any case, we are the ones who must provide solutions to our problem.
Boniface Barasa, TV47, Trans Nzoia County.
Thank you, our reporter Boniface Barasa, for that report. And still on matters education, when the government came up with a community-based learning plan in the wake of COVID-19, many viewed it as a mere drama. However, as our reporter Calvin Chitwa reports, a parent at Namunyiri village at the border of Kakamega and Uasin Gishu counties is proving that it is a reality to assemble children and teach them basic life skills.
Sounds of digging hoes and farm machetes. They not only tell a story of busy people in a farm, but also give hope that even without being in school for a long time, these learners are gaining a lot at home. Even though the idea of community-based learning by the government was to engage teachers during the COVID-19 period, Agri Baraza, a judiciary officer and a parent at Namunyiri village, has taken it upon himself to use the noble idea to help learners at his village.
Hiyo program ya watu kujifunza nyumbani inawezekana kabisa. Sio ugumu wote. Kila jambo kujitolea tu. Kwa mfano mimi sio mwalimu lakini nimeweza kufunza wao vizuri sana.
He has a 4-acre piece of land on which he does different farming activities.
Niko na kuku. Pia niko na sungura. Kwa watoto wadogo tuko na mboga, tuko na cabbage, tuko na sukuma, tuko na samaki pia.
He is a judiciary staff in Eldoret town, but when the CBL program was announced and after listening to stories of rampant cases of teenage pregnancies during the COVID-19 pandemic, he strongly felt the need to come home and help children in his community gain from his farm.
Tukiwa wadogo kulikuwa na ile mambo ya Young Farmers Club ambapo vitu mingi ingefanyika, na kwa sasa tunaelekea hiyo ikirudishwa kutakuwa na faida kubwa kwa watoto wetu hapa kwa village.
Recently, the government introduced community-based learning for all learners across the country. However, as you can see at Namunyiri village in Moise Bridge, the program had already started and is going on. From one section to the other, the learners are taught how to cultivate, rear rabbits, take care of a cow, among other farm skills. Some learners come in the morning and others in the afternoon to avoid congesting at the farm. Many of them say most of the skills they have learned are new to them.
Penye nimefika hapa hivi experience niko nayo, mimi mwenyewe naweza anza mradi yangu. Manake tumetoa chini mpaka sasa hivi nimefika.
Nimefundishwa kulisha sungura kama vile ula chakula matawi ya sukuma. Nimejifunza kulisha ng'ombe, kulisha makuku na kupanda mboga.
Kuna wadudu wanasumbua sana mboga zetu.
Kuna hii dudu ya roundworm.
They believe skills they have acquired will help them in their way of life. Calvin Chitwa, TV47, Uasin Gishu County.
Thank you, Calvin Chitwa, for that report. Indeed, it's learning in the farm. Elsewhere, more than 12,000 internally displaced persons from the Nyanza region have threatened to hold a nationwide protest over theft of their compensation funds. The IDPs who are victims of the 2007-2008 post-election violence, through their leaders, have given the government a 1-month ultimatum to arrest and prosecute individuals suspected to have stolen the money meant for their resettlement.
Wafanye hii, waache malumbano ya kisiasa. 2022
kuna wale ambao wametajirisha na hizo pesa.
Na katika hiyo mimi kwa majina ni
that is from Mombasa to Nyatike, the far end of this country. All tribes. But kuna wale watu ambao wamepata pesa kidogo ile 50,000. We are still insisting hata wenye walipata 50,000 hakuna pesa walipewa, we want even them that one to be revisited. So our humble request is, all these Kenyans, wengine ni Wakalenjin, Wakisii, Wajaluo, Wakikuyu na kabila zote. As we talk today, tuko na watu Waria. Tuko na Waria hapa. Ni mwadhiriwa.
Let's get sporty and to the world of sports now. And Sports Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed has released draft guidelines as sporting activities edge closer to resumption. Stakeholders will have a 7-day window to give their views on the report before the ministry puts together the final protocols. Health CAS Dr. Rashid Aman has disclosed that the government is contemplating to lift the ban on sports.
It is not only sports, I think, that wants to come back and be active. There are many areas within our social and economic life that we want to normalize and bring back to normal. Of course, in doing this, we must be informed by where we are in terms of our pandemic. And you have seen the progressive easing of measures as we have moved forward in some areas. And I'm sure that when the time is right and when we have the advice of experts as to what we can do in terms of the measures, those measures will be addressed.
Now, Harambee Stars centre-back Joash Onyango has for the first Night with me, Abu Bakr Abdullahi. Talk to us. The hashtag to use is Pandits Night Tonight. You can send us a message on 22047. Time for us to take a short break. That brings us to the end of the news, but the beginning of Pandits Night after this break. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Pandits Night after this break.